Well, the other day I was on ChatGPT because I've been having an epiphany about our brand identity and finding things externally that reflect how I feel about myself internally. So I'm doing this deep dive on our marketing and I'm asking it questions, going back and forth, really refining our messaging. And all of a sudden, ChatGPT asked me a question that hit me like a sack of bricks. And it said, Brock, why are you seeking validation from an industry that you're trying to disrupt? And one of the things that we're trying to preach in Neuromastery is that you can be a category of one, that the highest and best version of you is you being the highest and best version of yourself, which is me being the highest best version of Brock, Cam being the best version of Cam, and so on and so forth. And that's where the highest power is. And so why am I screaming to receive validation from an industry that I'm not trying to follow? I'm just trying to be the best version of Brock. And the more that I've been able to hone in there, I've been able to solve a lot of the problems that get in my way, because as I fully committed and made that full decision on who I want to be, which is me, I've been able to eliminate a lot of the shame and the guilt and the excuses and judgment that comes around from other people, and been able to fully embrace who I am and what mission we're on.
And I think it goes into, honestly, one of the world's greatest gifts or abilities, and that is innovation. And you think about the Wright brothers and how when they were trying to solve, human flight, the possibility of that, it was deemed physically impossible for humans to fly. Never be done. It can't be done. It does not exist, and it'll never exist. And part of being a category of one, we think about, ourselves as, as dads or as brothers, sisters in our family. We think about our work and being another employee, and it can be really easy to get into the mundane and the day-to-day and be seen as a commodity in yourself, just as another employee, as just another father, and be commoditized. And when everyone is commoditized and looked as the same, everyone's value goes down. Together, it's a race to the bottom. And so by what we're preaching in Neuromastery and being a category of one, and it being a systematic transformation and change, it allows you to scream your own uniqueness, be a category of one, which then just puts you're not comparable. And when you're not comparable and there's that side of innovation, you've reached that other side of it, no one can necessarily place a price tag on you. No one necessarily can place a certain amount of value, because you're creating your own value in the moment. And as you continue to grow to that, there's no limitation to it.
Yeah, well, the reason this has become important to us and within our community is because me as Brock Painter, I don't want to be the best at everything. And I spent my whole life comparing myself to people in industries that I didn't even necessarily want to do, but I always wanted to seem capable, competent, and like I was the best in things that I hadn't put in the reps, that I didn't necessarily care about, but just because I wanted to be seen as valid. And in all reality, as I've started to really hone in on what makes me Brock and unique and what I can bring to the table, I've been able to really find this sense of power inside myself and confidence that I can manage myself where I am, because the best version of me, where I'm able to give the most to the world, is when I let my light shine. Because if I have to dim my light to let another person shine, we both lose. Because they're not getting the highest and best version of Brock, which means I'm not being able to give that to them, to my family, to my wife, to my son. And so when I let my light shine bright, it also allows them to let their light shine bright and then be in their zone of genius. And in that, when you take those two lights and you put them together, it makes both become amplified. And that's the beauty of it, specifically when you're surrounded by a community of people that are there to be supportive, that are there to help you grow, that are there to push you and hold a standard that is high to where you truly are being that best version of yourself.
And there's a sense of peace, right? Like you said, a sense of power also brings a sense of peace and alignment, where you are authentically yourself, and that's nothing that anyone can take from you.
Because
right?
one thing that I loved about this concept, the second me and Cam started down this path, was that I always felt in my life that I was always in a one-to-one comparison, that I needed to either be better than everybody else, or I needed to be able at least to keep up and to follow and to be there with them and do what they do. But where I really resonated with this was I'm creating a whole nother category. I'm not trying to fit in because I don't belong there. I belong in my category of 1 to 0 where I can completely dominate the sphere because there's nobody else that can do what I do because I am Brock. And that's the beauty of it, is because you have that same capability to be the best version of yourself by just honing in on who you are and what you want to do with this world and designing and creating from that place of power.
And I remember one of our early clients, Denver, who's still with us. And the reason why we have a community, the reason why we have a brotherhood around the category of 1, this is a great example of why we have it, is Denver for the longest time, he was doing a lot of good. You know, he was raised in a family, growing his career, but internally he just never felt elite. And that's the word. And you started to ingrain that into him. Denver, you are elite. You're doing elite things, and you'll continue doing elite things. And it wasn't until he started working with you and being a part of the community that he truly was able to bring that. And that was one part of his uniqueness, that he now saw himself as elite. And that is one reason why we have the brotherhood. And that's we now are calling it the CO1 movement, the CO1 brotherhood, is that when you're with others and they're holding a certain standard, it allows you to hold that standard, and then you feel safe, you feel the peace, you feel the power, then go to the next level, to go and find that category for yourself.
Yep. And so what we want to encourage you is to go out and be that category of 1 for yourself and find a community where you can be that. Because a lot of times other people want to impose their will onto you and tell you who you're supposed to be. And if you don't know who you are, the world will tell you. But that's where you create a lot of misalignment in your life and find anxiety and depression, because your body's trying to tell you that it doesn't like the character you're trying to play in this game. Where you truly hone in on who you are, that means you impose yourself into your environment, not the other way around. And you're able to make decisions from a place of clarity, love, gratitude, respect, and everybody wins around you because they get the highest and best version of you. And that's the beauty of it. And so I want you to go out, seek that, find the places where you can have that community. And if you're looking for it, come talk to us, because I love the fact that inside of Neuromastery, nobody does what I do, but I also don't do what they do. And so there's so many different perspectives and ways for everybody to learn from one another that the power in the group is incredible. You know, one thing that I've been looking at recently is whether I'm a taker or I'm a giver. And I've dived into a lot of recent studies that in ancient days, they would track the energy that somebody was able to give to their environment. And a giver was able to do quite a bit on their own. But if you put 2 givers together, they created an entirely different frequency, and it was more amplified and stronger to impact the people around them. And so when I'll often try to do things on my own, I know I can create somewhat of an impact. But also when I'm able to incorporate another person into that, now amplify that by 10, 20, 50 people, the power is insane. And that's the beauty of it, is because you don't have to do everything yourself. You don't have to stress about always being enough. You just hone into your zone of genius. And so that's where the power is.
For someone who's wanting to create their own category, truly be a category of 1, what advice, what would be the first steps that you'd give someone?
The first steps that I would give someone are the first steps of our program, awareness. Because I believe that in our subconscious mind, our beliefs are what drive behavior. And if you don't know what's there, you also don't know what's affecting you. Because you may say that certain things are you just because they feel comfortable, but deep down you know they're misaligned with the character that you want to play, which is why you're feeling that friction, that anxiety, that imposter syndrome, whatever it is. And so if you can become aware of where that friction's at inside of you, then you can start to mold and to grow and to change your world to work for you rather than against you. And it doesn't have to be so frustratingly hard, because really what I believe is if I look at myself, right, just little Brock, and if I had to change the world of all 8 billion people that exist, that's a very intimidating task. But if I look inward and I say, as above, so below, which is a world inside of a world inside of a world, which means that if I can solve my world first, naturally the problems of the world solve themselves. And as I've done that consistently, I don't have to put so much effort into the results that I want to get, because I just put effort into myself. And as I pour here, it amplifies out there.
Yeah. It reminds me of the quote that I've probably said this before, but we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are. And so, as we get aware and we shift some of those beliefs that maybe served us in the past, right? Limiting beliefs or limiting decisions that have served us in the past that maybe protected us, help us feel safe, and garnered survival in a way, that as we're able to let go of those and find awareness, we're actually able to see the world differently. The world, the perspective, there's no objective reality. It's just who we see ourselves as and the beliefs that we hold. And as we do that, and collectively, as we all do that, if you think about collectively 8 billion people, we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are. And we're able to see ourselves all as a category of one, that we're givers, that we have gratitude and love and abundance, and we're not necessarily competing. We're all growing together. That's it. That's when everyone wins.
Right. Well, I heard a quote the other day that said, "Careful that you don't build a temple that nobody would want to live in." And it's so easy to see people building their life in a way that they don't feel comfortable in, and they don't even like who they're becoming, let alone their family, their kids, their friends, colleagues, people around them. Mm-hmm. And I think as you start to really understand yourself as the creator of your environment, and you start to become more comfortable in here, it's easier to be able to relate to others and to give to them when they can't give to themselves. Because there's that alignment, there's that peace, and there's that work that's been done. Like when I'm in a session with a client and they start talking about a problem they're having, I'm not necessarily listening to the events that took place. I'm trying to feel the darkness that they're experiencing in that moment. And I'm trying to connect that into the darkness that I've experienced. And the more that I've deliberately gone to that place and I understand that darkness inside myself, I can then relate to the pain that they're feeling. And that doesn't mean I understand it completely, but I can at least get to that place to where it would make sense why they made those decisions. And then I can start to work and mold and to grow with them as we start to work through this. And that's the beauty of it, is that, you watch guys kill themselves every day at work trying to work a job for a family that they don't ever see. Or they're at home all day feeling anxious and depressed that they're not doing anything meaningful. They think about going to the gym every single day, but then they just watch themselves gain weight. And at the same time, it's just they're building a temple that nobody wants to live in. And that's the scary part of where you do hone in on being a category of one. All those become options now.
One invitation I would give to those listening is to see yourself as a creator. Start to believe it. Start to think about it. Think back to when you were a kid and the imagination that you would take on, and how things would be so real in your reality. And the reason I say that is I believe that one of God's greatest gifts to us is that we can create. We're co-creators with Him. And that's being diminished with distractions, with quick dopamine hits and everything, entertainment, all of that. And it's not that it's objectively bad. It's just there's a space and time. And as we give ourselves the process to create and to ruminate, and that is where the seed, the infancy of becoming a category 1 starts. So start to see yourself as a creator.
Yeah, kind of funny enough about dopamine. I learned this the other day, that if you receive dopamine hits without having to put forward any effort, you're giving something the power to destroy your life. Mm. That's how drugs work, pornography. That's how social media works a lot of times, is because you can get these quick dopamine hits that will consume and destroy your life. Whereas when you look at running, on the other hand, it gives you that opportunity to put forth effort and to strive and to grow. And then that dopamine then amplifies your motivation and makes you want to continue to go. Yeah. And I just thought that was interesting as you look at really honing in your focus of what you want, because I do think all those things come into play as you start to really be that category of one, and where your motivation, where your focus is. Are you giving power to things to control your life, or are you being in the driver's seat, really creating and dictating what it is you want?
And then those things that you talk about, the quick dopamine hits, I mean, and social media, they're built in a way that such quick and easy to use consumption. And my thing is, if you were able to get awareness and build an identity around being a category of one, what if accessing social media, or what if accessing your category of one, your uniqueness, could be as simple and easy to use as social media? That takes a lot of commitment, but as far as that, if with intentional focus and going down this path, you can rewire and use the dopamine to your advantage to access your inner being, your inner self, your future self, your category one, in an easy way, just like you do opening up Instagram on your phone.
Yeah, it's amazing when you really hone in focus and you're intentional about the life you want to live, because that's really what it's all about. It's not like we look at us from the inside out and you think that, well, I need to figure out who I am. I need to go in and find this part of me that I need to pull up and then start to exude more. When in all reality, it's not that. It's not something found. It's something created. It's built. And it's saying, these are the things that I want to be a part of me. And then starting to design and to build and to learn the lessons to do that. And I think that's the cool part about it, is you're not necessarily cut from one cloth and saying, okay, this is what you've been dealt, figure it out. It comes completely from a place of want. And another thing that I often think about in this place of want is that your family doesn't need somebody who's perfect. And when I say perfect, I mean performing without error. It doesn't mean they need someone who gets it right every time. They need somebody who's whole. Because when you're whole, then you can give of yourself. You can be there with them and fully aligned. And so that way, when you do give them your time and attention, when you do have the opportunity to have those moments and experiences, they come from a place of wholeness, and there's a lot of quality that comes in that instead of just more.
Right. I hear that. And so our invitation again is to be a category of one, follow along. We're evolving neuromastery in a lot of ways, and it's going to be focused around being a category of one and instilling that identity in me, in Brock, and in you. So